The roar of the motorcycles grew louder, shaking the air with vibrations that rattled the windows of the diner. Inside, the clink of cutlery and soft murmur of conversation were abruptly drowned by the growl of engines as a gang of bikers thundered into the parking lot, tires screeching on the asphalt. The leader, a hulking figure with a leather jacket adorned with patches, swung off his bike. He pulled down his helmet, his eyes scanning the diner with disdain, before they locked onto the old man sitting at the counter, sipping his coffee. A few snickers rang out as the bikers filtered into the diner, sneering at the elderly man. His silver hair shone under the neon lights, his face a calm mask. He was alone, an anomaly in a world of rough, rebellious youth. One of the bikers, a younger, brash man with tattoos snaking down his arms, approached the old man. His voice dripped with mockery. "What language is that, old man?" he sneered, mimicking an exaggerated accent, barely hiding his amusement. The old man didn't flinch. His hands, weathered and calloused, gently set his coffee cup down. He took a deep breath, eyes never leaving the biker. Slowly, deliberately, he spoke. His words rolled off his tongue in a low, deliberate murmur, a language few would recognize. The room fell silent. Even the clinking of cups stopped. The bikers exchanged confused glances. But it was the leader's reaction that caught everyone's attention. His face went pale, his hand involuntarily gripping the back of a nearby chair as though it were the only thing keeping him upright. For a split second, time itself seemed to freeze. "Code," the leader whispered under his breath, his voice trembling. The old man remained seated, the same calm look in his eyes as though he had just asked for the time. The biker leader's gaze shifted, his mind racing. A distant memory flickered through his mind, one from a time long ago, buried beneath layers of darkness. A military camp, far from here. The cold, biting wind howling as soldiers moved with precision. And there, in the midst of it all, a voice. An old man, much like the one sitting across from him, speaking in a code that had haunted the leader's nightmares for years. Flashback, it was during a time of war. The leader, then just a soldier, had been part of an elite unit tasked with gathering intelligence. They had been in a foreign country surrounded by enemies when they intercepted a strange transmission. The voice on the other end spoke in an unfamiliar dialect, too precise to be a mere accident. It wasn't just a language, it was a code. His team had scrambled to decode it, but it had taken hours. When they finally pieced it together, it was too late. The enemy had already arrived, and the code had led them directly to his unit. The leader, with sweat beading on his forehead, had barely escaped with his life. But the old man's voice, the one who had spoken the code, lingered in his mind. He had never forgotten that voice. Back in the diner, the old man stood up, his chair scraping against the floor with a soft, eerie sound. The bikers tensed, suddenly aware that they were no longer dealing with just an old man. This wasn't just some harmless fool they could mock. "You ... The leader's voice cracked, barely audible. His eyes darted around the room, looking for any escape, but the door was blocked by his own men. The air had changed. The tension was palpable. The old man turned slowly to face him. "You remember," he said, his voice a low rasp. "The code, the one that saved your life? Or was it the one that doomed it?" The leader staggered back, the words hitting him like a physical blow. Memories of betrayal, death, and survival came rushing back in an avalanche. He had been part of a covert operation once where old men, silent, unassuming figures, had been the ones pulling the strings. Men like this one. "You were one of them," the leader said, his voice now full of disbelief. "You were—" The old man nodded. "Yes, I was part of something far bigger than you ever understood, and now you've walked into my world." The bikers were silent, unsure of what to do, but the leader, his mind reeling, knew exactly what the old man was capable of. The biker gang was just that, a gang, a collection of men who survived by their wits and strength. But the old man, he was no mere survivor. He was a strategist, a shadow in the depths of history. And now it was clear, He was here for a reason. The old man's eyes flicked to the gang members, his face hardening. "You mocked me. Now you will regret it." In a flash, the old man moved with surprising speed, his hand darting out to grab a nearby napkin holder. The metal flew through the air, striking one of the bikers in the face, knocking him unconscious before he even hit the ground. The gang froze. "Get him!" the leader shouted, his voice breaking through the shock. But it was too late. The old man was already moving again, his body an unshakable force, calculating each movement with precision. But just as the old man prepared for the next move, the leader raised his hands in surrender. "Wait, wait," he pleaded, his voice frantic. "Please, I didn't know. I didn't know you were still here." The old man paused. For a brief moment, it seemed like he might let them go, but then his eyes hardened. "The world doesn't forget its debts," he said quietly. "And yours is long overdue." The room was silent. The bikers stood frozen, unsure whether to flee or face whatever consequences awaited them. The old man's face remained unreadable, his eyes distant, as if looking far beyond them into the fog of time. And in that silence, one truth lingered. Some people were not meant to be mocked, and some codes, once spoken, could never be undone.